All right, we're back this week on Chasing Birdies, and I'm not going to even do an intro about this guy. We have Greg Bodine on the podcast, Bryson DeChambeau's caddy, and most notoriously coming off the recent U.S. Open win at Pinehurst #2. Greg, my man, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, like I said, I'm happy to be on now that things have settled down a little bit, but thank you for
Shit.
the invite.
Have
Yeah,
you
no, this
stopped
is awesome.
smiling yet?
Yeah, it's been a good I mean, it was a wild run after I thought I was busy. I talked about like slowing down and like how happy we've all been, but it's like Bryson he got back to the player dining at probably 11 o'clock at night after he signed and did all the media stuff. We hung out for an hour or two, left the pro shop or the dining area after midnight, and then he flew to New York at 2:30. Then he got on Good Morning America, and then he went on the Today Show, took a nap, went to CNBC, got on Pat. What's the guy's on the
McAfee.
ESPN show? McAfee. I always say McAfee, but anyway. So yeah, it's been an action packed, great, few days or weeks, I guess now. But the U.S. Open feels like a long time ago.
Yeah, especially with all the prep you guys probably did leading up to it,
Yeah, exactly.
starting early. But
Yeah.
no, it was so fun to watch, and I know we have a lot of things that we want to talk about with you. So I'll let Pep take it because I know he was about to jump through the screen right now. So, Bud, go ahead.
No, man, I'm just really excited for this. This is awesome to have you on, and my family, we've been frequenting Pinehurst for many years. We have a place. My parents have a place down there, and so I've played #2 a lot, and it was cool to see you guys kind of navigate through the course on Saturday and Sunday. And I was excited for. I thought the course setup for Pinehurst was really cool too.
Hmm.
What was
Yeah, it
your guys'
was.
thoughts?
Yeah, actually, a lot of people thought the first U.S. Open I caddied, I caddied for Tony Finau previously for a while.
Hmm.
And the first U.S. Open I actually caddied in outside of 2010 for my cousin as an amateur when we were both in college was 2015 at Chambers. So I missed Pinehurst. It was like I said, the last one that I'd missed for probably 7, 8 years in a row. And so I didn't know much. I'd seen Martin Keimer had won, and I saw him putting from everywhere. And so and some people have said like, it's not really a bomber's course, and it's like at some point people got to realize like Bryson's just not a bomber. He also does a lot of other things well, but still, like every time he's able to hit a driver, he's going to be 40 yards in front of everyone else. So the more drivers he can hit, the better. And it didn't seem like that type of course. And then when we got there, I kind of I thought that we had a good chance because he could hit driver a lot. There was a lot of ways to
Hmm.
push up. There was no, there's obviously you played there a bunch. Like number three, you got to hit an iron. Number one, you
Yeah.
have to hit an iron. But like he hit 9, 10, 11 drivers every day. And once I saw that, I was like, we're gonna have a good chance here if he drives it fine because A, we're gonna be 40 yards ahead of everyone else, and B, he's gonna be just deciding which wedge he's gonna hit into every hole. Everyone else has to no, seriously. No, like
Damn.
as everyone like is like, oh, great job, and like, yeah, I'd like to think I do a decent job at a decent work at my job. But at the same time, I'm like, it is so much easier to caddy for a guy deciding if he's going to hit gap wedge or pitching wedge into a hole at Pinehurst rather than, hey, are we going to bump up this 7 iron or are we going to like try to hit an 8 iron on top and hope it spins enough to not go over the
Yeah.
bank?
Well, I'll tell you the one hole that I feel like Bryson had. Well, he had a massive advantage on a lot of holes, but I feel like for you guys, #2 was a massive advantage. People don't realize how long #2 is, and the surface that you have to land this ball. The green there is only about 40% usable.
Well, that's what I was even talking to a buddy of mine yesterday, and I saw the replay of the telecast for a few holes, and they had that little cool little green outline
Yeah.
of where all the edges are, and they're like, "This is the playable landing area," and I was like, "That's not the playable landing area because you're basically just showing where the ball will stay.
Stop. Yeah.
Like you're when you think about hitting golf balls into those greens." Like they have, the back edge will have a little line and it'll say, okay, past this, it's rolling off the back, but you can't land it a yard short of that green line where it's in that green space
Hmm.
and it's not staying, it's bouncing. The second hop's going to be over the green. So essentially, you kind of have like the front half of that little mapped area that they had shown on the telecast. Like I said, I thought it was a great visual, but they kept referring to it as like the place you can land it. I'm like, no, that's just where the ball will stay if it ends up there. Otherwise, you're, like I said, Bryson had a little bit of a bigger gap than most people because he can spin the crap out of it, but it was pretty much the first half of that little circle they drew.
A lot of people don't realize how much caddies do. Leg work going into Thursday of an event. So you guys got there what, Sunday night?
Got there. We had an event the week before in Houston. Got there Sunday night, and we actually got diverted. And it was, so we're flying in. That's another nice thing about caddying for Bryson is he'll take you on his plane,
PJ,
and usually,
huh?
yeah, exactly. So we're flying in, and the only downside about that is that the plane's a lot smaller, and we tried to land in the middle of a storm. And we got about 50 feet off the runway. This is a cool tidbit about the week because Bryson said it was the most scared he's been on an airplane in his life, and it was up there for me. We tried to land, and shout out to the pilots and NetJets, is like they were trying to just give it a go and see, but we looked down and the plane was like 40. So you see like the runway lights that are supposed to be going parallel to you.
Yeah.
Right.
And we look down and they're going at a 45-degree angle, and the plane's shaking all over the place. And about 50 feet before the runway, you just hear the jets go, and the nose goes straight up in the air, and you kind of feel like you don't have much. It felt like we're going 20 miles an hour this way. Like it was a weird feeling. We had to go fly over to, I think it was Fayetteville, and it was at least it was over an hour drive. And so we didn't get into we thought we were going to be in our hotel in Pinehurst at like 9 o'clock, and we didn't get in until about 1 a.m. But I know that's a little bit of a side story, but that was even Bryson at the end, people were just like saying their prayers and shouting, certain words and on the team. And, but we got there, and luckily we got there in one piece, and the rest of the week went a lot better than that night.
So your preparation then basically began Monday. People are starting to realize, if they haven't realized, how detail-oriented somebody like Bryson DeChambeau is and how important you are. I think it's, you and his equipment are the two most important things to his golf game right now.
Well, let me segue off that because that's a great point, and I was going to mention that. You coming from a guy like Finau and then going and carrying for Bryson, two different style players. They couldn't be polar opposites, really. So, yeah, how was that adjustment? And then in light of Pep's question, going into this prep, what is that like? Is it like another live event at the Greenbrier where he fires 58? No, it's got to be a little different.
Yeah, everyone tries I think the challenge is you try to approach it the same way, but the reality is we all know that it's different. And so to answer your questions with Tony and Bryson, you're exactly right. Like they're complete opposites. I would say that I actually fit Bryson's mold a little bit better. I've always been kind of a numbers geek, stats guy. I learned aim point early on, and like Tony, he never bothered with that stuff. He just likes to, he's more of a field player and use your eyes and your feet. And I was just, but I felt it was a way to just, for me to learn how to read greens better or understand physics more and how putts break. And so I liked, going to Bryson, that part wasn't like extremely difficult. It's a 10-footer, it's down a 2.5% that plays 45% of the way there. We're going to hit this 4.5 feet, or there's a lot like that stuff is okay. Like I can grasp that stuff. It's pretty simple, but you just have to be quick. You just can't be like sit there when he's like staring at you, looking to confirm or
calculating.
Yeah. The one thing I did struggle with Bryson was the way he reads putts, because he uses this system called it's called like vector putting, and so essentially you take all the slopes between you and the hole and you add up like which way. So for example, just to like a quick vector putting, this is like the most simple way is like from 10 feet on a 2% slope, if it's a stimp 11, and if you're at the 90-degree angle, so putting directly across the slope 90 degrees, that's going to break about 8 inches. And so essentially with vector putting, you would draw a dot 8 inches outside the right edge of the hole because it breaks 8 inches. And then, so, so here's the putt you're hitting to the hole. Here's the hole right here. Here's 8 inches. And wherever you move that ball along 10 feet, that's where you're aiming at the dot. So obviously if you're right below the hole, you're aiming at the dot that's right behind the hole because it's a straight putt. And then if you go over here, you're aiming at the dot, which might be left edge or however you guys are seeing it. And so that's the most simple, just that's a constant grade. A lot of times putts will do multiple things. And he taught me, it wasn't until last fall I went to his house for a couple days after we'd worked together for a couple months, and he really like dove into that. And we were up till midnight on his putt view green, showing me how to read putts using the vector system. And then at least from then on out, we were kind of speaking a little bit of the same language. But yeah, Bryson is, and I'll one quick note on top of that is like everyone likes to say like, oh, he's so methodical and this and that, and like he doesn't use feel. But the reality is, like, you could blindfold Bryson and put him on a putting green, and as long as you aim him in the right way, and you could say, hey, this is a 12 stimp, the stimp's 12 on the screen. The first 12 feet are up a 3%, the middle 12 feet are flat, and the last, a 30-footer? So the last 6 feet are down 2%. And he could sit there blindfolded and probably lag it within a few feet every single time just because he knows his putting system is a whole nother thing.
Jesus
But
Christ.
so it's like in that regard, he said that because I even like kind of went, I kind of was like, yeah, well, alluded to the fact that maybe he doesn't use as much feel, and he was like, I understand, but also like here's my point of view. And so next part of the question, as far as just like the prep and stuff, is the nice thing, and I've always feel like I've been a relatively hardworking caddy, and I don't like to show up unprepared. That's the only way I really feel nervous out there is if he hits it over the back of a green and it's the back right flag, and if he's like, how is that over there? Like, is that easy? Or and if I don't have an answer, that's when I don't feel good about myself. But he, yeah. So for example, like I'll walk the course at least once myself. And basically what I do is figure out, okay, if it's soft, if it's firm, if it's into the wind, downwind, depending on all the different flags, what's the right play, in my opinion. Obviously, he's the boss. He has the final say. But if he's in between, he's like, oh, I'm not sure if we're supposed to hit a 3-wood to this front flag. Like, can we get enough spin if we have 85 yards? It's not even a full wedge. That's my cue to come in and be like, no, like you can hit, it's a little upslope kind of where 290 is. So like, I don't see the ball running out that far. You can hit it and still we can get a full wedge in there, or vice versa. And so he's I spend a good amount of time, and I have a lot of color coded, I have a lot of number ranking systems for how good short sides are, how thick the rough is. I'll do highlighting on the side of the fairways just to get nerdy with it. And it's a good visual for him, but
Well,
yeah, we try to do
it
our
sounds
best.
like you guys are kind of the same person, right? Like you're the caddy version of him, basically.
When it comes to preparation, when it comes
Right.
to on the course, he's very open about how we are very different. So like, that's what I think he appreciates about me is like, it's really, there's sometimes where it annoys me because I don't have that like killer instinct, from a caddy point of view, or a lot of what I've done. I haven't been like the craziest, most competitive guy. Like I like to I'm kind of a flatliner out there. I just like find a lot of the stuff he does funny, and I like take my job seriously, but like, it's really hard for me to get worked up. And so I think one of the biggest parts of my job with Bryson is not just to go through the X's and O's. Like the reality, he can do that stuff on his own, and more often than not, he's going to do just fine without processing it through me. I just try to be good company for 6, 7, 8 hours, and B, just kind of be bumpers for him. So for Bryson, as we've seen, he's alluded to, like in the past, he's gone in his own way and he's beat himself. And I think a big role from, myself or any caddy of Bryson's before this is just to like try to keep him in his lane and make sure that he doesn't beat himself, and that we look at things half full when we need to look at things, in a different perspective. Like even we bogeyed 10 on the par 5 on, I think it was on Saturday, maybe Friday or Saturday, and he was pissed. Like I could tell he was just fuming because it's like, you cannot make bogeys on par 5s at the U.S. Open.
When there's
like,
only two. And
exactly.
There's only two.
So it was, even for me, I'm like, gosh, that really sucks. And so, but I thought back and I go, okay, he got up and down from over the green on 8, just like he did on Sunday. But
8?
so On number 8. Yeah, yeah. That's where like you're not like, oh, I'm gonna make bogey for sure. You're like, there's a chance I make quad here because
Yeah.
who
dude.
knows. And
That
then
what
so
that won him the event for the record.
yeah,
I know 18 is 18, but that, like you said, people don't realize the elevation on the back of 8 coming across, short-sided, green running away from you, downhill,
yeah,
and this cat gets up and down. He literally
yeah.
saved himself 2 shots.
So that's yeah, you're exactly right. Like as good as 18 was, if he hits a mediocre chip, like because a mediocre chip could barely go over the back edge and go down to 50 feet, and you two putt and you make, you lose 2 shots there. And so I agree with you because if he doesn't get that up and down, 18 doesn't matter. He could get up and down on 18 and it's to finish T3 instead of solo first. So
Yeah.
but I remember he got up and down on 8 and then he birdied 9 and then we bogeyed 10. And so it was like a weird hour of golf. And I remember walking off 10. And so like, here's a good example of like, we're not reinventing the wheel or saying anything crazy. I was just like, hey, over the back of 8, would you have taken these next 3 holes at even par? Because 9's not easy. 9's like a terrifying par 3. And 10, yeah, it's a par 5, but I think it played at like a 4.9 for the week. And so, and he kind of looked at me, he's like, yeah, that would actually, like, I'd go par, par, par in a heartbeat. I was like, well, we played those 3 holes even because you saved par on 8, you made birdie on 9, and we bogeyed 10. Let's just pretend we parred all 3 of those. And if you had parred all 3 of those, you'd be ecstatic walking off number 10 green going into 11. So it's just those little things that you try to like pick and choose your time to like speak up. And sometimes it's not always the right thing, but most of the time you try to hit the nail on the head.
Well, for me personally, I was rooting for Bryson. And, Bryson, for me, I'll be vulnerable here. I always liked him. It just took me a little bit more time to get with it, because there's a little unorthodox approach to things. I love the guy. In fact, I took him Thursday morning. I said, this guy is going to win this fucking U.S. Open, and I'm betting money on him. And I love his animation with the crowd. I love that. I love how when he hit that iron on that par 3, he watched that thing, chased it down, yells at those putts. I love it. Great for the game. But here's my question. Was there ever a point where you thought you were going to tell him or be in a position to tell him, hey, bud, you might not need to hit a 360. Why not just hit the 3-wood? Because you're hitting left, you're hitting right. You're hitting left, you're hitting right. A 320 fairway 3-wood would be fine, right? I mean, was there any discussion about hitting 3-wood instead of driver?
Nope.
No.
So, and that's, I understand. It's like, as a fan, you're watching and it's like, I think he hit maybe 1 or 2 fairways with his driver.
Oh yeah.
It was just one of those things where Bryson, and I tell him this consistently, it's probably between him and Rory. I'm like, I always tell him like, you're the best driver of the golf ball in the world. And I just feel like, could I have said that? Yeah. If Bryson had brought it up to me, I think that changes everything. The fact that he'd never brought it up to me was that was my telltale sign. Like I think there's maybe a couple times for a few seconds where I was like, gosh, we could like hit a 3-wood here, but it was like in one ear and out the other because A, Bryson wasn't talking about it, and B, he's the best driver of the golf ball in the world. So,
yeah. And
I also feel like in that moment, he's, like I said, caddying is such a big part of caddying is just kind of saying the right things at the right time. And I didn't want to take confidence away from him because like I knew like we were going to have to hit some drivers later in the round. Like, yeah, he can hit it 310, 320, but it's like that's a huge part of his advantage is that he can go hit a pitching wedge into number 16. If we're hitting 8-iron, 7-iron into that green, it's like becomes such a harder shot. So yeah, to answer your question, we didn't talk about it once in the entire round. He did say we hit it right on 8 because he switched out the driver head before the round because it was spinning too much. Yeah. So, but he looks over at me. We're walking into the trees on number 8. He looks over at me. He's like, Jibo. He's like, I'm like, yeah, what's up? And he's like, I don't think we should have changed the driver head on the range. I was like, yeah, I don't think so either. But hey, we got to dance with the girl we brought, and it is what it is. And he was like, but yeah, he switched to get to that point is on the range. He hits the ball so hard that he goes through a few heads every month. Like he probably has 300 to 500 balls a head, hitting a driver, and obviously he spends a lot of time on the range.
But at his compact. You know what I mean? Like the way he compacts the ball is basically like 1,000 golf balls to a normal person.
Oh yeah, if you watch, like, if you look at the slow-mo of him hitting the golf ball in the face, that thing like turns into a marshmallow on the face. And it's like, we think these, golf balls and equipment and all like are just, indestructible, but the reality is after, 3 to 500 golf balls, his face will start. I actually have a driver here too. So here you can see how curved the face is right here.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like this. And when he hits more than 3 or 500 golf balls, what will happen is, let's see if I didn't come prepared to show this. I'll use the back of my frame. So I don't know if you guys can see.
Oh,
So
yeah.
see,
Yeah.
so that gives you an idea. So when he has a little gauge that has some curvature to match this, and so when he puts it on, it'll be flush. We know that we're good, and that matches kind of his ball speed to where his misses won't be as penalized as if he were to use a normal bulge and roll on the face of the driver. And he hits a couple. I mean, this is like 15 minutes before we're like supposed to be. Yeah, we're supposed to be at the tee box. Like, luckily one was close, but the spin will go up when the driver starts to flatten. The spin will go up, and he'll miss a few left and right because that curvature isn't there anymore. And so he hit a couple that were a little spinny, and then he missed a couple left and a couple right. And he measured it, and it had gotten a little flatter. Literally at some point in the round, or the day before, onto the range, because he drove it well on Saturday. And it's just, we're talking millimeters. Like, if this thing gets flattened by a millimeter or two, when you're swinging it at 130 and you're sending this golf ball at 195 ball speed, like, those millimeters matter. And so he asked his manager, and about backup heads. We had 4, and he hit 3 balls with the first backup, 3 balls with the second backup, and then he hit 4 balls with the third head, and that's the one that he ended up going to. But we didn't realize that it was a 5-degree loft instead of 6-degree loft. And so, as you guys know, it was a different lofted head.
Oh my gosh.
And this is the same thing. Obviously, we're talking degrees and fractions, but
so
with
real quick,
less loft.
when did you find out that it was a 5-degree head? On the course or
after? Yeah. Yeah. So, as we all know, like, the more loft you have, the easier it is to turn over. Bryson hits a draw all the time. Like, he can hit a cut, but like, he loves to play a draw. You always hear commentators like, oh, he went to the 3-wood to turn it over because it has more loft. And so you look down at a driver head that has, normal one is 6 or 5.5. So we're talking about a half or maybe a full degree. But I think I'm pretty sure that's exactly why we missed so many out to the right. And the ones that he missed to the left were just an overcorrection. That was, the miss on Sunday was right. And after hitting 6 or 7 balls in the right, native area, he just tried to turn it over more. And that's when he missed a couple left. But props to him. He still figured out a way to get it done.
Yeah.
That's insane. That there's a 5-degree driver head. And so people that don't realize, like, that's what long drive hitters are using.
Yeah. Well, he has to. That's his lofts on his, everyone likes to, like, he'll hit a 9-iron. Like, even on 17, we had 223, and it was into the wind, if anything. You could see the flags on 17 coming back into us, and he hit an 8-iron. And a lot of people like to say, well, is 8-irons it's a 6.5-iron loft? And I'm like, true, like, they're right on that, but he spins his 8-iron, that 6.5-iron loft, more than anyone else spins their regular 8-iron loft. So it's not to look a certain way or look cool. It's like, if he played normal loft irons, he would hit everything to the moon. And he already has the highest apex in professional golf. They have you could look, there was a chart on Twitter a couple weeks ago that was like, I like Bryson at the Open because he has the highest apex. He kind of was thinking what I was thinking earlier in the week. On average, he hits it 140 feet in the air with his irons, and it's because he spins the ball so much, and he hits down on his irons really hard, to where if he had a normal lofted 5-iron, he would hit it into the wind. He would hit it, downwind, it would go 280, and into the wind, it'd go 180. Like, he just has to. So it's the same thing with his driver. Like, if he had a 8-9-iron or a 8-9-degree loft with his driver, like, the thing would go to the moon. You guys already see it on Shot Tracker. It already goes higher than anyone else's. He just has to have those lofts in order to keep his ball flight controllable.
That's incredible.
I have 2 things to bring up more from Pinehurst. One, potentially the greatest up and down in a major championship is on the 72nd hole, um, the 50-yard bunker shot. And a good friend of my family's is Bob Rotella, and when I was playing, college golf, I always asked him, "How do you hit that? How do the pros hit that?" He said, "It's easy. They just don't go there. It's called course management. It's the hardest golf shot. It's the hardest golf shot for the pros." And when he hit it there, I'm thinking, "Oh my God!" And he hit that thing so good. I texted Ryan. I said, "Bud, if that's me under these circumstances, that ball's in the tennis courts over the clubhouse."
Yeah, whatever that little roundabout, and you know that course well, but there's that roundabout over in the middle of all the, like, that's where our ball is going for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's incredible. That up and down, and it was, I was happy for him because we bet on him, and for two, but Winged Foot, there was like 9 people in the crowd, and he got to actually celebrate, and that's to my next point is, I know you don't have to get into this conversation to Live PGA Tour, but if there was ever a turning point in the last 2 years of Live PGA Tour, we witnessed it at the U.S. Open in Pinehurst with the fans, because the fans put the bullshit away to the side, and they were genuinely all about Bryson.
Yep.
And the things Bryson was doing with the crowd, and I don't know, it gives me chills right now I'm talking about it, but after 10, when he walks off and the handicap kid's sitting there, and he goes over and gives him a high five and signs the hat. People don't realize, number one, the mental, you're so far into the golf course in the round of golf in a U.S. Open, for him to take 2 seconds to do that, to go over there and do that. And Rory did the same thing, so I'm not going to discount him. But it was really neat to see that people put the Live PGA Tour bullshit aside and really jumped on board with Bryson.
Yeah, he's I think people, obviously I think Bryson's changed a little bit in the last year or two, but I honestly think it's more of people are starting to understand who he really is. The PGA Tour was tough because it's all individual. You're kind of on your own island. Obviously you got your swing coach and your caddy or whatever. But I think Liv has done a great, it's been a great thing for him to, like, Bryson he's a great person that, to his own, he's even admitted himself, he's got it in his own way and said some things and done some things he regrets. But that's the thing. It's like, there's some people in life where they seem like good people, but deep down you can tell, like, I think this is like a facade, or I think they're fake, but Bryson's the opposite. He's a good person that a lot of people love to think as though he's a bad person that tries to every once in a while do the right things and good things. Like, for me and him, he's been incredible. Obviously he's my boss and I love working for him, but he's become like an incredible friend of mine too. And it's bizarre. That's like, I knew he could play well. Like, that makes sense to me. I'd watched him when I was scouting for Tony. I'd be in his group, and I knew how good he was. But that's the biggest thing surprise to me, is how well we've got along the course, how respectful he's been towards me. And obviously we make a lot of decisions together every week. There's hundreds and there's a lot on the line. And there's times where we get into it a little bit and he'll let me know what he felt like I did wrong. And he actually is like really good about me giving him feedback. And obviously we keep it professional and never gets personal, but it's been awesome. And like, I get the closest look at him, outside the ropes, inside the ropes, and what you see outside the ropes, he's the same thing. He's the same way when he's by himself, or if it's just us two, or if it's just a few of us. Like, this game is stressful. People will, lose their cool from time to time, and that's okay. And you got to be able to accept that. And I know that won't be that will happen again. And it's just our job, or my job and Bryson's job, to like keep things under control. But yeah, he's the man, and it's really fun to see how. I also think Liv with Charles Howell, Paul Casey, and Anirban Lahiri, like, those are 3 perfect guys to be in his ear. And I've seen, they've obviously applauded him and like congratulated him on a lot of the good things he's done. But when things are really hard, especially, when I came on board, things weren't perfect in his life. He was struggling in a lot of ways, and instantly I noticed, like, it was awesome to have these guys sitting him down, whether it's on the range or in dining, and just speaking life into him, because those 3 guys, Paul Casey, been around the block. He knows, he's extremely wise. Charles Howell is like the most positive, upbeat, half full person I've ever met in my life. And then Honor Bond is like the calmest, coolest individual. I've said this on a couple other talks I've had, is like, he does these, like, I don't know if you guys remember, he'll do these like silence retreats, and he'll go into like a dark room for a week without any phone or anything. And it's like, that's the opposite of Bryson. You know, he's high strung, he's passionate, he's got a lot going on. And so it's good for these guys to all be surrounding him and playing practice rounds and eating dinner. And I think all those things, and on top of the hard work Bryson's done, that's the core fundamental of all this. It's got to come from within, and it's got to be from Bryson, but he's got the right tools and people around him in order to get back to kind of where he's gotten now.
And
You
you've
can
got
see that. You can see it.
Yeah. And I will be the first to admit I was not Team Bryson up until about a year and a half ago, because I'm like, what is this going on here? But dude, I will tell you, everything that he's been doing, like even the PGA Championship when he lost, he went over, congratulated him. Look, there's so much that he's doing that is right, and I think that it is genuine now. I think he's a real deal. So your cousins are Andrew and Michael Putnam. That's what a lot of people don't realize. 2 PGA Tour, ex-PGA Tour players. So are they involved with your your indoor country club that you have?
Yeah, that's how I got started with Andrew. I caddied, like I mentioned earlier, I did caddy in the 2010 U.S. Open for him when we were both kids. I think it was early college. And we always talked about, like, I grew up with him, so I was a golfer myself, but I understood, like, these guys, I saw 2 guys that ended up playing on the PGA Tour from, I grew up playing golf with them every day, and I never thought I was ever going to play professionally, and it saved me a lot of time from thinking that I could do so. But I wanted to caddy for Andrew, and we always talked about, hey, when I turn pro, you'll caddy for me, blah blah blah. But obviously that's kind of a pipe dream when you're talking about that in high school and even early college. But then he went to Pepperdine and he won a few times. He was All-American. And then in 2012 or so, he was like, I'm turning pro. Like, do you want to do this with me and go to Q school? And I'm skipping a couple steps, but essentially we went to all the stages of Q school in 2013, and he got his web.com card. And I caddied for him out there for a year, which was, I think he finished like 35th on the money list, like had a decent year, but still a learning experience for both of us. And then that's how I got to know Tony Finau, just being out there. And then Tony and I linked up, and Andrew had a good buddy of his step on the bag. And then, I caddied for Tony for 6 or so years. And yeah, it's just bizarre how it's all worked out. It just started, that's how a lot of caddies start out. They got a family member or friend, and you just kind of roll with that. Otherwise it's a lot harder to get involved in. But yeah, Andrew, to answer your question, Andrew and Michael are both they weren't involved in the first one, the one I'm at now. Right. But we're opening up a second one down in Tacoma, and it's 25,000 square feet. It's going to be the largest indoor golf facility in the country. Yeah. So we're going to have. Go ahead.
So do you have to be a member?
Yeah. So it's membership
awesome.
Based. There's a couple different levels to where it's like if you're just looking to come in for a few hours on the weekend, or if you're looking to hang out there 2-3 hours a day, we got a couple different levels. But yeah, here we just have, like, at the spot down south, we'll have 14 TrackMans. We'll have an 8,000 square foot chipping green. And then we'll have a separate putting green as well, a fitness center. We'll have some chiropractors and strength trainers on site. So
are you going to have a screen that's strong enough for Bryson's ball, or what?
Yeah. Well, so here's fun fact about screens that I've learned since opening up this place, is that it's actually the wedges that tear up the screen. I know there's that video of what's his name smashing it through the screen at Golf Channel. It's Sedlowski.
Yeah.
But we've found out, because we're going through screens every 6-7 months, and we found out when the wedge goes onto the screen and it spins, basically compresses against the screen and spins
wearing it
20 times. But yeah, Bryson, he's talked about coming here, and it's the perfect place for him. I mean, being the golf nerd that he is, it's we have putt view. Like I said, we have a little indoor chipping green here as well, and 8 simulators at this spot and a fitness center. So it's perfect, and some snacks in the corner. So it's right up Bryson's alley.
I love it, man. You're submerged in it, and
yeah,
I love it. And I know we're gonna be wrapping up here for you, but I got a couple questions for you.
Let's do it.
You ever run into Brad Ullman?
The rules official?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he was the West Virginia Golf Association executive director. So I've known Brad for years, And I was sad a couple years ago when he told me he was going to live to do this thing. But I mean, my God, he has done great. And so I'm happy for him. So I just figured
What's he say about it? He likes it out there, doesn't he?
He loves it. He loves it.
Best case
And I went
scenario.
down last year, caught the Greenbrier because I'm in West Virginia, and played with Peter Uline and Stevie Vincent in my pro-am. And a buddy of mine actually played with Bryson. Josh Miranda played with Bryson in the he's the country singer.
Yeah.
But
No, I remember him. Yeah.
Yeah, Josh. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Brad's a great guy, and he's having a hell of a time out there. So it's good to see him doing that. But here's my other question for you. Getting back to the U.S. Open, because I didn't ask this question, neither did Pep, surprisingly. But were you paying attention at all to Rory, or was he paying attention when he went down 2 shots? I think Rory was 8 under, Bryson dropped to 6 before he birdied 13. I mean, was he in tune with anything that was going on, or was it just you?
No, we both knew exactly what was going on.
You did.
Like, we didn't speak about it really. We didn't speak about it to each other. I mean, but there's a leaderboard on every single hole.
Yeah.
And you're trying, I'll just be straight up. There's a few times when I saw him, we're the group behind him and it's not moving fast. Like we can see everything that's going on. You can hear the roars were really, really loud. And there's a few times where, he made a 20-footer and I'm just like, I hope it's a 20-footer to where maybe they yell that loud for a par save. I'm just like, come on, have one of these show up at where we walk up and he doesn't go, because he got on a run there in the middle of the round where I was like, it just looked like every other hole he was rolling in a 20-footer. And obviously I was focused on other things, but when my mind would drift over in that direction, I look at the leaderboard, I would walk up and I was hoping like, man, hopefully that was a par save. And every time it was a birdie. But on 13, we got that bad lie on in the right rough on 12 and made a bogey right when he had made a really good par save on 12. And then he knocks it over the green on 13 and we see him make his birdie putt. And we were down 2 with, we have 5 holes left and Rory has 4. And we're just like, that was a critical time. Like, I'd say the up and down on 8 kept us in it. And then the tee ball on 13 is the other one that was like the big difference maker, because if we don't make birdie there, like Rory, the fact that he hit it on the green and 14 tee. So here's the green on 13 and 14, where you walk right back past the green to go down to the fairway on 14. And I think it was huge just to have Rory walk by and see Bryson 25 feet above the hole, to where Rory was like, okay, I'm might have a 1-shot lead after he putts out. Could be tied.
Could be tied.
Because So I think that put, a little bit of stress. And I don't know if that, if Bryson goes and hits it in the weeds and then he chunks it out in the bunker and chips it up and Rory looks back and sees him 2-putt from 20 feet and makes a bogey, like, Rory's still Rory. Like, I know he had a hiccup or 2 on the back, but like, this is a guy that's cruising into the Hall of Fame and has won several majors and has won 50 times around the world. Like, you cannot expect to be down 2 or 3 with 4 holes to go and have a chance. Like and you're just looking at those last 4 holes. There's no birdie holes there. 13's your last real birdie chance. Obviously it's possible, but for Bryson to make birdie there and just get 1 shot back, I think just made all the difference going into those last few holes.
The only thing that would have made that day better is if you played with Rory. That would have been mind-blowing. But
yeah. It would have. I was hoping, and I didn't ask Bryson, but I would be shocked if he would disagree. Like, I'm sure he wanted. It's like nothing against Pavon or Patrick, but it's like you look at the leaderboard and you probably are like, Rory's the biggest threat here, and it's the best. He'd be the best person to have a pulse on and see, up close what's going on. And Bryson's not afraid of that situation, and Rory isn't either. But yeah, it was still cool and fun to, now that it's all said and done and Bryson won, it was cool to see Rory put on a charge. And for a while there, it didn't look great, but Bryson just never gave up and never got sour and never talked down about the round or himself. And here we are.
There we go.
Yeah.
Well, it was fun to watch, Greg. And again, congratulations to you and
you.
Bryson, naturally. But yeah, it's really cool experience here. So we're going to end this show with our standard tap-in segment presented by Bettinardi Golf. Check them out online at bettinardi.com. Jonathan's going to ask you 4 questions that demand quick response. And here we go.
Okay.
All right. What was the beverage of choice after the U.S. Open win?
Red wine.
Nice. Pinot or Cab?
Right?
Pinot or
Cab.
Cab? All right, Gil, I love it.
There we go.
All right, favorite part of the Live Tour?
The food, or
Oh.
we'll go. Hey, let's be real. Let's go the purse size.
Yeah.
That helps you out too, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a
Um,
lot of good things, but yeah, that's an awesome part.
What's the next major you hope you guys win?
Troon in
June.
3 weeks. Yeah,
Let's go.
All right, and the last question: what are you chasing?
birdies.
Oh,
I love it, but I would probably put majors up there too. So we'll say majors.
Well,
and
birdies. Well, I guess it's
birdies lead the majors.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Majors, if you're chasing majors, you have to make birdies, but
Yeah.
it's more of like a process thing, right? If you make
Yeah,
birdies, then
exactly.
majors will come.
Yeah.
Bryson's not really that way. Like, there's a lot of guys who think like, oh, it's all the process, and Bryson has those tendencies, but like, he'd probably say majors for sure. And he's like,
Love
if we
it.
win majors, we'll make birdies and eagles anyways, Greg.
I
Yeah.
love it.
You know, it's
Great.
funny. You guys kind of look alike a little bit. with the hat.
We
The
have
dimples. Yeah.
yeah, my wife was like, there's a picture of us after Chicago last year. We're both when he'd won, and we're both grinning, and we both have these dimples, and we're both getting older and have these like lines right here. So I'm just he's a little bit buffer than me, but I got him in height, so we'll call it square.
Even. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, man, thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Shout out to Travis Snyder for the hookup, and hopefully I can pop on here a few more times before the year ends.
Hell
Love
yeah,
it.
let's do it. Let's do it.
All right.